The Weimar Republic one was funny. I like that one too. The fish. Yo! Another ad in only 2 minutes 30. Be sure to check it out. I'm just saying. They're so happy. They really are. Thanks for watching fish with me while I eat Subway, guys. This is a big moment for us. I'm going to be live tomorrow, I think. I'm sparring for my boxing training in the evening. Meaning I will be freshly hit in the head. Which means when I get back, maybe I won't want to stream. But I'm going to try to, unless my head hurts really bad. It's a weird looking dog. It is. Hold on. Cool. But yeah. I think I might try and stream tomorrow. If not, I'm definitely streaming Saturday. Not sure what yet. I know there's a sponsored segment at some point. I'm going to do some normal content first, and then we're going to do a sponsored segment afterwards. Because I went and did a cool thing for a company that we're going to talk about on the back end of Saturday's stream. But we're going to do something cool first. I ain't just going to do a sponsored stream for you. Whenever I do sponsored streams now, I'll try and do at least an hour of like normal stuff beforehand. You know? That's a cool jellyfish. I like jellyfish. They look cool. Not when they sting you, but just to look at. They're a cool looking animal. My favorite is the otter, but they're a good second. Apparently, is it dolphins that like intentionally get spiked by pufferfish because it gets them high? Or some shit? Like they like use like pufferfish like recreational drugs. That's so interesting to me. They're like, because they're like a very intelligent creature. You know, potentially second to humans. I don't know if that's actually true, but maybe it is. It's like crazy that they're like, with intelligence comes drug use, right? It's like the smarter a creature is, the more likely it is to do drugs. What a weird thing. That's actually a statistic with humans too. Interesting. Really interesting. I didn't know that. I'm looking forward to doing the video essay channel. I don't know when it will happen. I'm busy right now, and it's a bit like more of a passion project. Oh, the ads are running right now. I didn't even notice. High IQ individuals are more likely to abuse alcohol or recreational drugs. Interesting. Didn't know that. But yeah, no, the video essay. I want to do one about I've spoken about a little bit about this before. My sort of religious takes. I think you know, I think I was saying earlier, I was telling someone about it. I was like, I think the general idea of, it sounds dangerous, but I actually am like, I have no real like religious hot takes as such. My actual my like take on religion is that religion's a really cool thing, right? I think faith is important to a lot of people. You know, I'm not saying I agree with every religious teaching, you know, but the general idea of faith is really cool. But I really don't like this sort of theist versus atheist sort of argument. I think it's ultimately futile. And people always try and pit science against religion. You know, I was I got an Uber and I was in Marbella recently and I got an Uber. My Uber driver was like an hour long Uber, and my guy just started asking me about politics. I guess because he you know, I think I guess he was interested in politics, and he you know, I'm a foreigner. So I know a little bit more. He kind of knew a lot about American and British politics. Obviously, I'm British, so he was asking me a lot about British politics. And I don't know too much, but we were having a little conversation. But then he kind of like switched into being like quite philosophical. Started hitting me with like philosophical shit. And I really like talking to him. You know, really lovely guy to speak to. Atheist saying "oh my god" instead of "oh my science." But no, but I was speaking to this guy for a while, and right before he dropped me off, he like 5 minutes before the journey was about to be over, he just turned to me and he's like, "I think you are a Christian." And I was like, "That's funny. I'm not. I'm not. I'm like, I know a little bit. I know a decent amount about Christianity and, you know, sort of religion and stuff because it interests me. But I'm not. You know, I don't have faith. I just kind of know a lot about the teachings and stuff." And he asked me to watch a guy whose name I'm going to get for you now. He asked that I watched talks from a guy named John Maddox, I believe. I haven't found the picture yet, but I think I've just remembered. I believe it was a guy called John Maddox. Lennox, sorry. John Lennox. John Lennox, right? And he said, listen to this guy, John Lennox. Also, thank you for watching the ads if you did. I really do appreciate that. It supports the stream a lot. But listen to this guy, John Lennox. So I did. Watch this John Lennox guy. And he's a professor at Oxford. Professor of mathematics in some capacity. Deeply religious, right? Starts speaking about religion and stuff. And then, so I watched his little speech. I didn't find any of it to be particularly compelling. I don't find that he said very much that I really thought, like, said anything to me. Like, he was trying to, like, convince scientific minds to still have faith, and nothing, I didn't really get much out of it. But, interesting guy, nonetheless. But he did I saw lots of debates. This is where I saw lots of debate videos, and him debating other scientists who are strictly atheist, and he's very, very religious. And, I just thought it was ultimately all very silly. This idea that either everything can be explained by science, or everything can be explained by God, right? And he's saying that I do like Lennox's sort of ideology of like science is something we can use to observe the works of God, right? Fine, cool, but I've said this before. I personally believe that it isn't a combination of both. They are just both the same thing. Right? Like, I think if you look at religious texts through a scientific lens, like with what we know to be scientifically fact, and what we, and this is the thing, religious texts came about years and years and years ago, thousands and thousands of years. And if you look at old ancient literature, generally things are written in personified metaphorical senses, generally, throughout literature in olden times. And if you look at then, all right, this is what we know and can prove, and here's what this book is saying, and you would try and apply the sort of stories and personifications that they come up with to metaphysical shit and like real observable things. I think that you can just like say what is what, right? So like, for example, you know, people say that like God is this omnipotent sort of being, creator of everything, blah 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 blah. You know, that's the general accepted sort of idea of God. You know, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. You know, but if you consider for a second that you know the universe is a finite collection of energy and matter. You know, that you can't make energy or matter. You can create energy from matter and you can create matter from energy, but there's only a certain amount. Like those two things, that's like the two states that stuff can be in, and there's only so much stuff. And we are some of that stuff. Like what makes you you is part of that stuff, right? It's like all of a sudden, if you think God is like the universe, like God is whatever this God figure that the Bible and the Quran and the Torah speaks of, is the universe itself, all of a sudden, my opinion, it kind of like makes sense, you know? This idea that God is part of us, it's omnipotent. It is because it is everything. Everyone is part of this God. Everything is part of this God, right? And I've always thought that was, you know, but yeah, this is what I mean. You know, like, there's a religion for that. Yeah, I'm sure there is, but you know, I don't think that's the point. You know. But yeah, I just think that's really interesting. And like, I think if people just opened themselves up to other people's perspectives, then they would find that their views aren't that different. You know, that's all. Which isn't like a hugely profound thing, but I don't know. I just and like the idea of like people like say that like when they're praying they feel closest to God, and like what is godliness, right? And there's a guy I used to listen to, a Christian guy. Didn't listen to him because I'm particularly religious. Just found him interesting as a guy, but very religious man. And he practiced more Eastern Orthodox Christianity, which generally involves a lot of meditation, right? And you know, that's like their sort of act of prayer. And praying in and of itself is kind of a meditative act, right? You kind of close your eyes, you sit there, you're very present in a moment, and you just kind of recite some words in your head, right? It's a very sort of meditative act, right? You know? And if prayer is what brings you closer to God, and God is in the universe itself under this understanding, then it's like meditation is known to kind of quell the ego, right? The ego being the part of yourself that views itself as self. And the only thing that stops you from realizing that you are just part of this greater universe, you are just another collection of energy and atoms, is the ego. That's the only part of you that kind of believes it is a self, you know? It's like if you quell that self for a second and you just kind of objectively experience, then you are in that moment the closest to God, i.e. the universe, right? And that's why prayer is such a common practice in pretty much every religion. That's what I was thinking. So that, yeah, there you go. That's my Did you smoke off camera? No, it sounds like I did, but I don't know. It's just like I just find this really interesting. I don't know if it's I'm sure it's not an original idea. I'm sure there's someone else out there who's said these things, but I've never read it anywhere. It's never something I've ever heard anyone say. These are all just kind of a combination of different little bits of information I've found that I think combine into a nice, neat little, you know. But yeah. 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 Just find it really interesting. Any thoughts on the afterlife? Not until today. And they're loose, but I was thinking about this earlier because I wanted to do the essay about it. I was just kind of thinking about it. I think the Christian belief, right, that if you believe in Jesus, you know, and you go to heaven. It's basically it, right? Like in belief in God and Jesus, in true belief, you go to heaven. If not, you go to hell. That's a difficult one to explain through my universe thing, right? Because like, there's nothing to believe in per se. It's like the universe just exists. But this is where I think it's quite a metaphorical sort of thing, right? And I think, I'm not sure, but I think what I understand right now, what I think is, you know, you don't have to believe what I think, but this is what I think. Again, if praying and all that and being closer to God is just this act of really like quelling the ego, then this idea of heaven and hell, there's no place, right? There's no heaven. There's no like oh, this is how I see it anyway. There's no like actual place that you just show up to. You know, you die and you show up at the pearly gates. I don't believe that so much. Let me turn the camera back on. It's probably cooled down by now. You know, I realized this was a Roblox gameplay originally, by the way, but you know. Yeah, it's not this idea that, oh shit, there's bread everywhere. The idea that there is this place called heaven and there is this place called hell, and one of them's shit and one of them's not. I think it's just to do with one's comfortability with death, right? And if one is to understand that they are just a part of the universe and they're just atoms, and when they die, the only thing that dies is the conscious, the self. You know, the body, the very atoms that make it still exist, right? I mean, they're not going to disappear. They just become part of God again. They return to the Father, you know, the universe itself. They return there, right? But if you don't believe in that sort of stuff, if you don't kind of understand, if you're so consumed by the ego, and generally if you look at the things that are defined as sin in most religions, they're kind of the things that feed the ego the most, right? Sort of like, you know, greed and stuff like that. The things that really can make one sort of grow this huge sense of ego are generally the things that are considered sin. It's like in being, you know, sinful and therefore having this sort of grandiose ego, you come to the point where you're about to die and you're gonna fucking shit yourself because the only thing that you can conceive in your brain is this sense of self, and it's about to cease to exist. You know, you don't believe in the soul per se. No, I do. This is the fun one. The soul's a difficult one. The soul is a fun one. So again, don't believe in souls in the sense that, like, you know, I don't know. There's like a little ghosty living inside of you, and when you die, that ghosty continues to exist outside the body. It's not quite how I see it, but, you know. Yeah, sorry. 2 seconds. Just trying to do a little bit of spring cleaning. But anyway, yeah, the idea of a soul, right? This is gonna get really confusing because this involves computer programming, which is like weird that I'm bringing this into it, but it helped me understand it. So, this is where it gets kind of confusing. A human being, right? A human being. Say you were to make a clone of a human, right? Like an exact clone. Like had the exact same genetic makeup. It was made of the exact same number of atoms, exact same number of cells. They had every one of the same memories. Their brain fired off the same way. If you put them in the same situation, they'd act similarly. They are identical. They are identical. Almost like if you were to pull a human apart and then refabricate them at the other end, right? They would be identical. And to everyone observing them, they would be absolutely the same. And it would be as if nothing changed, right? Let's say you took a human apart, cell by cell, and then, like atom by atom, and then recreated them from a set of different atoms. Like every single atom is different, but you put them back together the exact same way, and it literally, absolutely, they're identical in every single way on a physical level, right? Say you were to do that. Even though they would be the exact same, and everyone would observe them at the same, it'd be like you took a person apart and put them straight back together again. Kind of like the ship of Theseus, this is. It's kind of the ship of Theseus thing. They wouldn't be the same person. And this is why. So in computer programming, right, there's a thing called object-oriented programming, which is essentially where you code the sort of... Say I wanted to code the script for a ball, right? So I set out the code for a ball. And in it are some variables like the size of the ball and the weight of the ball and things like that. And then there's some functions like if you throw a ball against a wall, how far does it bounce and stuff like that. And every single ball that exists adheres to ball code. So all of them have the bounce function. How hard do they bounce? Well, it depends on the material. Look at the material sort of like variable. Well, this material is bouncy, so it bounces far. Right? And when you create... So you got the code, right? When you create... ball code, lol. Yeah, balls. Jack Manifold explains the soul through balls. And when you... Sorry, but anyway, when you take that code, you... when you create a ball, what you do is you take that code and you create an instance of it. An instance is essentially a copy of that code with all the variables filled in, and it just functions. So when you throw it at a wall, it runs the bounce function, and it uses all the information from its instance to determine how that instance will bounce. Right? And if you create an instance of a ball, right, and it has all this information, and it stores all this information, and then you kill off that instance, you delete it from memory. But then you reinitialize a ball with all the same variables, every single variable it had, you reinitialize it. That isn't the same thing. It acts the same, and it's as if it's the original ball, but it isn't. It isn't the same ball. It's a completely new instance of code, right? It's a completely new instance of ball. All of a sudden, you do that with human, right? And like this is why I was saying this. It came from a thought that I thought I'd never be teleported if they made teleportation. Never want to be teleported. If they do wormholes, maybe. But I think, like realistically, in my head, the way teleportation would always work is they kind of just like fizzle all the atoms apart at one end into pure energy, and then there's like an energy reserve, and they rematerialize it at the other end. And it's essentially, you rematerialize the exact same way, so you have all the same memories and blah, 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 blah. So it's as if you just kind of get transported from one place to another. But what's really happening is you're not getting moved from one place to another. They're taking you apart at one end and putting you back together at the other. This probably isn't realistically how a teleportation would work, but this is how I came up with it in my head. And if you were to be put back together at the other end, everyone would be able to talk to you, but like... you wouldn't be the instance. The thing in your head, the ego that is the self, wouldn't exist. Like it would be it would be a recreation of it, an identical recreation, but it wouldn't be you. The kind of like the part that is seeing what I see and feeling what I feel, it wouldn't be me. It would be something else. It's why I'm not someone else, right? You know what I mean? Like you would just die, and it would be a clone, realistically. It would just be an identical clone. So, the soul, I believe, is the instance of a human being, right? It's like the instance of a human being. That's what I think it is. That's the soul. It's the manifestation of all these electrical signals. Because the thing is, I don't think... I don't know how to explain it, but like... it's the manifestation of consciousness. That's a soul. How would you know you're not the original? No, this is the thing. The clone would think it was the original. It wouldn't think it had died, but the original had died. It would be a new instance that had been instantly created, but it had access to all these memories that makes it think it's been alive for longer, but it's actually an instance that existed for about 5 minutes. But say you made something in code, and you had that code had a variable, and that variable was how long, so that instance of code had a variable that tracked how long it had been alive, and then you killed that, and then 10 days later, you recreated it with all the information from the one you killed, and then you started that one up again, and you asked it how long it had been alive. It would think it had been alive as long as the last one had been alive, because it has all its information. So when it was asked to recall that information, go, oh yeah, I've been alive this long. But actually, it's an instance that's existed for seconds. The you were born yesterday theory. Exactly. I think they call it the last Thursday theory. The idea that you can't prove that you weren't born last Thursday. And just didn't come into existence. Like the whole universe, you can't prove that the universe wasn't created last Thursday. And that everyone was just created with memories of a universe that existed for longer. You know? You can't prove that, sometimes they just turn everything off. And everyone goes unconscious. But when we come back on, we have no memory of it. And we all think we just, there's no way of proving any of that. That you can't. You physically unprovable. So, I think the soul is, the sort of true instance of consciousness. And even if you were to exactly recreate that consciousness, it wouldn't be the same soul.
OMG, 4 months. I've been giving this man money for 4 months.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the 4 months. But yeah. Bit of a scary thought. It isn't a scary thought per se. It's just that, it's why I would never opt to be, put into a computer. Because I wouldn't live forever inside a computer. A recreation of my consciousness would live within the computer. And it would feel like it would live forever. But I am not that. I am the blueprint through which that was made. You know? What happens to your soul after you die, in your opinion? I don't know yet. I don't know. Maybe it truly does just disappear. Maybe it ceases to exist, right? That's the ego, right? And that does die when you die. So, How long does that instance of consciousness last? Doesn't it die when you sleep? Well, yeah, that's the interesting thing, right? I've thought about that a little bit, and that would kind of put a hole in my theory. Because then, if it does die when you sleep, then, maybe if I was teleported, it would be me. Because I'm me every single day. I am the same but am I? Am I the same instance every single day? That's interesting. Maybe it would be like going to sleep. See, now that's hard. That's hard. There are remnants of your consciousness in sleep, though, right? You are semi-conscious. You're not dead, you know? I don't know. Just a thought. But yeah, this is what the video essay would be about. We're literally that painting of philosophers right now, yeah. Just a theory. Oh yeah, no, it's all just a theory. Yeah. I'd love to yeah. A brain theory. It's just a theory. I'm Matt Pat right now. I'm Matt Patting this shit. But yeah. It's just a thought though. I'm literally having a midlife crisis. Look. It's not a scary thought, I don't think. I think it definitely could change your way of thinking, but it shouldn't change your way of acting, right? You know? I don't think religious people, if they resonate with my theory, should act any differently. I think a lot of religious practice is simply just it's like a self-help guide. I've found. You know? I think religious teachings a lot of the time just essentially like a big self-help guide. You know, even things in the Quran, for example, like prayer five times a day. You may think, oh well, if God isn't this actual conscious deity, but rather the universe itself, what's the point in praying to it 5 times a day? And it's well, in a way there isn't, because no one's listening. But it's that meditative act, that routine, that discipline. These are things that quell the ego, the sense of self, and bring us closer to this godly sort of sense, and you know, meditation's good. This is proven. You know, I personally think a lot of me thinks that religious texts were obviously written by someone. You know, they're obviously written by people, right? And it's like, if you were to find the person who wrote it, I wouldn't be shocked if, you know, they were like, yeah, no, I know that no one's listening, but how do I convince people to do this thing that will help them, right? And it's like, create a personified version of the universe under which, you know, people, and tell people to pray to it, and that it will treat them kinder if they do. Not because the universe will actually favor them, but because they will make their life easier through the act and being part of the universe. They're, you know, like, that's how I see it. You know. But yeah. Religious texts are just specific people's theories on life that people have come to support. Yeah. But I find it interesting how, like, so Christianity, Judaism, and Islam are all, like, very similar, right? Like, it's the same God, you know? Yeah. Can I plagiarize this? No. These are my original thoughts. You can't plagiarize this. I'm going to make a video essay about it. It's going to be cool. Not really. No, not exactly, but similarly, you know? They're similar. They're a similar... They're a similar sort of... They're not the same God. Sorry. That was a very interesting, you know... Manifold Legal will be in contact. I don't think it's a controversial thing. That's what I was always taught. I was always taught that the Islamic God was the same as the Christian God, like, in essence, but they just believe different things about it. But if you were to ask, like what is the, like, Muslim equivalent of, like, a priest? What are they called? Imam. You just ask an imam, they would essentially be like, the Abrahamic religions. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. No. All three faiths are descended from Abraham. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to say. They just believe in slightly different things. I don't know. I find it interesting that you know, three very similar ideas have kind of generated in different, very separate parts of the world at times where... Well, actually, no, they don't all originate from separate parts of the world, do they? I'm lying. I'm being stupid. This is where I'm being stupid. But, like, different ones were accepted in different parts of the world. I don't really know. No, I think they all originate from the similar sort of places. You know? Do you know anyone who follows a particular religion? What is their take on all of it, if so? So, actually, this is one of the things I want to do for the video essay. I want to... this is going to sound like the setup to a joke. I want to speak to, you know, they're all like a priest, a rabbi, and a monk. I actually don't want to speak to a monk, but I do want to speak to a priest, a rabbi, and an imam. And see what they think of all this. I'm not trying to convince them or anything. I don't think you can. Like, these are deeply religious people who kind of... You know, their life's embedded in their faith. I don't think I'm going to change their minds, and I don't seek to. I don't think there's any benefit in doing that. I don't think these people are wrong in any way. I don't think they're wrong at all, you know. I think their beliefs will bring them to what they seek in a capacity. Absolutely. So I don't think they're wrong in pursuing different things. But what I want to kind of have them there for is one, to learn a bit more about their religions, because I only know surface level things. I know most about Christianity, then probably like second about Islam, and then I really don't know very much about Judaism. It follows similar principles. But I kind of want to run it past them so that they can poke holes in it. And it's like, because as far as my understanding of all religions basically says that they can't disprove this. There's individual stories that are difficult to explain under my theory. But again, I'm generally of the idea that a lot of these stories are kind of more metaphorical than they are literal, and that there's probably some deeper teaching that the story personifies. And I don't know all the stories well enough to tell you what they are, and I haven't thought about it enough. But I'd love to like speak to them and kind of go, is there anything that you think really pokes a hole in this, and hear what they say and see whether it pokes a hole in it in my mind. Because they probably are going to think they can poke 1,000,001 holes in it, but it's like, can they poke a hole in my head? Because I think there's certain hyper specifics that they'll think that we'll just disagree on. But like generally speaking, I think we'll agree. But yeah, Twitch is such an obscure place to do this. Yeah, but I'm a guy who live streams, and yeah. Do you think you'd speak to a Catholic and Protestant religious leader, or just any of the two who's open up to open up a can of denominational worms? Yeah, basically just either or. Like, I'm not bothered if they're Protestant or Catholic. Like, the general idea is similar enough that I think speaking to either would yield similar results. Same as like there's different like branches of Islam. I'll speak to an imam. I don't really care what specific branch they practice. I don't think it's necessary. I think I'd want someone who's a little bit more open-minded. I wouldn't want to speak to someone who's like die-hard religious, like takes the Bible very literally. But I've seen this is why I know this, because I've seen it's a priest I follow on TikTok. Who definitely kind of understands that like the Bible isn't quite literal. I need someone who has that understanding that their sort of religious text isn't a hyper literal thing, and it is like sort of a narrative under which teachings are taught. I think if you could, as long as they kind of have that core understanding, then that's all that really matters. Does this affect your take on ghosts, or is that separate? And this is the only thing. I am almost certain in this belief, right? So I genuinely believe, as of right now, that is I am right? That's my faith, right? Like, I have faith in my own thinking. Because as of right now, I can't poke any holes in the logic. And I've never met anyone that can. But ghosts, and I have had ghost experiences. I mean, I captured one of them on camera. It's on Twitter. I've had ghost experiences. Things I cannot explain. And my understanding of the soul and all this sort of stuff does not coincide with what I experienced. That's what it is. That's the only thing that makes me think maybe I'm wrong. And maybe there is some more like spiritual things than just, what I think. Maybe I'm just trying to apply it to something it doesn't really, Yeah. It's the only thing. The world is complex. I don't know if it can be explained in just one way. Probably not. But I think... I don't know. As of yet, I don't know of a complex enough idea that it can't be explained. Sometimes it really takes a while to wrap your head around, but I don't think it's an idea that cannot be explained. And what am I trying to say? I think many people have explained the world in a way that they think kind of has most of the answers. But I think if we look at all their explanations holistically, it's like you triangulate like an explanation from all these different explanations with holes. It's like, can you fill the holes of one explanation with another? And where do they overlap? And even though they might not literally overlap, where do they overlap if you think about it? And I think what you'll find is like one sort of holistic approach. Was the universe always here? Not what was before? If yes, how? I think space, the fabric of space, has always existed. I think that's, you know, I think that's always existed. There's a good way of looking at it. And it's not a great way of looking at it because I know you create paper from matter, but like, I'm trying to like, you know, I don't know. I don't think everything needs a creation point, but I think if you draw something on paper, right, if you create a landscape on a piece of paper, then you didn't really create it as such. But what you've done is, you know, there was ink and a pen, and there was fabric. And what you've done is you've taken the ink and the pen, and you've laid it out as a creation on this fabric, and from that point it exists. But the fabric upon which it exists, relative to itself, has always existed, right? This is what I think. I think space and time have always existed, right? And energy existed within it. And we know that from energy, matter can be created. And through something, because I do believe I believe in the Big Bang. Through something, matter sprung from this explosion of energy. And this is how all the matter came into the universe, and then all that matter interacted with each other, and blah, 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 and this is how everything came to be. But the fabric of space-time is a permanence. I don't think the universe has always existed. Oh no, it has technically, but not
Jack,
not as
I
we
just
understand
joined,
it.
and I don't understand what socks you've been smoking. Are you okay? LMAO.
Look, I don't have to be smoking shit to think like this. I like philosophical thoughts, man. I don't got to be on drugs to think them. Think of time more as a social construct rather than an actual thing that's existed forever. I kind of am half in agreement with you, but not fully. Time is relative. This can be proven. Time can only be measured relative to something else. Like you know how you can't measure distance? Like, distance is just relative between 2 points. Like, you can't measure distance between something and nothing. Like, because, you know, same with time. So it's a measurement of distance between 2 points on a timeline. That is a length of time. So I think time is a social construct in the sense that we kind of are just kind of measuring it relative to us. But, like, there is an objective sense of time. And I think the fabric of space-time, you know, thinking for this is the idea of dimensions. There's 3 dimensions of space, but then there's a 4th dimension, which is time. And then there's the dimensions above that. But the 4th dimension is the dimension of time. If you can move freely through the time, everything that has happened and will happen already exists. Every instance in time exists. We're just creatures that linearly move through it at a rate we can't control. Or we can kind of control through motion, but not very well. You know. Any opinions on the multiverse? Maybe. Maybe not. If fabric of space-time is infinite, then, you know, I suppose so. I don't really know. What was that? There was a beginning to time or a limit to it in that we can't see all the stars forever. No, there was a creation point for the stars. I think time itself is potentially infinite. Potentially. I don't know. Maybe it's finite though, right? If everything that ever will happen is there, you know. But I don't know. Anything about the egg theory of the universe? Can't say I know that one. Cannot say I know that one. Do ghosts scare you, or is it alright to have souls just roaming around? I mean, I'm scared by them in the sense that, like, in an animalistic sense. Conceptually, I'm not scared of them, but when I had that ghost experience, I was scared. So I can't say I'm not. Like, animalistically, you know, the part of me that has a will to live just was kind of like, oh, I don't understand this thing and I can't see it and it could be threatening. But conceptually, I don't think so. Stars technically a measure of time. You can measure time via stars, but they're not like the like measure of time. I don't really know. I read somewhere that the stars we were looking at are from billions of years ago. Yeah. Yeah, because light takes so long to travel. So depending on how many light years away a star is, that's how many years it would take for light to travel from that star to us. So if a star is really, really, really fucking far away, it takes really, 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 really long amounts of time for the light to reach us. Meaning, if a star is really far away, yeah, you can be seeing light from billions of years ago. It's just reaching your eyes billions of years from its origin point. Meaning that a lot of the stars we're looking at probably don't exist. Like, a lot of the stars we see in the sky don't exist anymore. It's just the light that was coming from them that is still getting here. And eventually one day they'll switch off and then we'll go, oh shit, that star must have died. But it probably died billions of years ago. Equally, there's more stars that exist that we can't see right now. And one day they're just going to show up. You know? One day, there's just going to be a new star in the sky. You know? Stars are going to disappear and show up all the time. That's what's really cool. Here's an interesting one. Someone's giving me a definitive point. The universe has to have a god because of the simple fact that the universe is tied to a chain of dependability, which has to end at a certain point. Most people believe where it ends is the universe, but it isn't completely independent, as it has to. No, this is where I disagree. I think this is a lot of people's justification for religion. They basically were saying that if you don't believe that the universe, if you believe the universe is finite, then there has to be something beyond it. Like, everything must be contained within something. That doesn't make sense, I don't think, because, what is it, just an infinity of containers? Where does God fall into all of that, And also, like, why does anything have to have created it, I'm personally of the opinion that this isn't the first time the universe has existed. I personally think the universe... So we don't know this. There's no way of proving this. There's 3 general ideas for the universe. It'll either expand forever, that it'll expand and then come to a point, and then eventually it will begin to shrink, and then it'll collapse in on itself and become a singularity. Or it's going to expand and shrink, and then another Big Bang will happen, and it'll expand and shrink. And then another Big Bang will happen, and it'll expand and shrink. I think it's that. What caused the first event? The last universe finally reaching a singularity. Why can't it just go on forever? I don't know. I think just because we understand everything as having a beginning or end doesn't mean it necessarily has to. There's no way of proving that. How do you prove that anything ever has to have, beginning or an end? Everything must have a cause. Yeah, but I think every single understanding of the universe has this idea that there is a given, right? Even say you're religious, it is a given that there is a God, right? It is given. God then created the beginning and end of everything, but the rules, it's like how the rules of physics are a given, right? Like if this happens, this will happen, right? All the functions of the universe are a given. Here's the thing, right? Again, I'm looking at object-oriented programming. Every single object that you ever program has functions, right? And they're the givens of this object. Every ball can bounce to some degree. Every ball can move, whatever, right? But every ball also has a given number of variables. And I think what we accept that it's a given that gravity exists. We accept that it's a given that momentum's a thing. And we accept that the laws of physics are a given. But what we seem to fail to sort of accept is that there's got to be given variables. For example, there has to be a God. All right, if that's what you believe. Not my personal belief, but if you believe it, that's fine. I believe the given variable is the fact that Big Bangs, they happen. This has always happened. I think. I don't know. It's difficult to get your head around. I still don't fully understand that. I think a lot of people don't realize that it's okay to have unknown. Like, we don't have to know everything about the universal life and how it was created in order to understand it to some degree. We don't need to fill in the blanks in order to understand it somewhat, which I think is where religion comes from. I think people just want to understand as much as possible, you know? I'd like to understand it all, but like realistically I won't. Like, there is still going to be flaws in my theory, you know? Can't explain everything. I think I'm getting good at being able to explain most things we encounter, and that's why I'm pretty confident in it, but I don't think I can explain everything. How does understanding differ from knowledge? Knowledge is an awareness. Understanding is, you know, the ability to apply, I guess. You know? Like, you can be aware that my belief is that God is the universe, right? But to understand where I'm coming from, kind of got to be able to apply it to your own sort of things. I think that's the difference. It's a good question, though. But yeah, I think knowing and understanding is the difference between recollection and application, I would say. They say in my country, I just know that I know nothing. I like that phrase. I do like that phrase. I'm going to post on YT soon. I want to film a main channel video soon, and I want to film... Well, actually, that's the main thing. That's the main priority. I spoke to some people about it today. It's in the works. I'm also working on a very big idea at the moment. Big project. For this year. I don't know when it will be, but I got some really cool people agree to be involved. It's sad that I'll never live long enough to be content with what I know. I fucking love that. That's a sick quote, bro. I don't know if that's a quote or something you just said, but I think that shit's sick. And look at that. I was just thinking, you know what? That big project, I messaged someone about it who's very important to the whole ordeal, and they haven't messaged me back yet. And guess what? They just messaged me an hour ago. I like that. You're right, though. That's like a cool philosophy quote. I see like these pages on TikTok that like just post philosophy quotes, and it's sad to know that I'll never live long enough to be content with what I know. That's cool. It's cool. Summarizes are sort of like, we're always learning, and we always have this drive to learn. It's not that we're just always learning, we actually actively have a drive to. That's quite cool. It's really cool. No, I think we'll end on that quote. Albeit a little bit sad, but do not worry. Feels like that core side of TikTok. I love this stuff. Oh wait, hold on, one more. Find it just logically impossible that there cannot be a God, or at the very least, some greater being that created everything. Everything must have a cause. Without there being something greater behind the fabric of the universe, the laws of nature and everything that govern could not exist. Why? I just don't quite understand the why behind that. No disrespect about it. Like, fair enough. That's what you think. I just don't really understand the why. Like, kind of this belief that everything has a cause isn't necessarily wrong, but like, we don't necessarily always have to understand the cause of things. I think, you know, like, randomness is a thing. And if you really like hyper-analyze randomness, you'll find, you know, you'll be able to trace why it happened. But, you know, I think it's possibly a little bit like, I don't know. I'm getting a bit tired now, though. I think this could become more into a debate. I don't want to shit on anyone's faith. I actually actively encourage having faith. I just have it in a slightly different capacity to the sort of traditional way to have faith. But by all means, please believe what you believe. Trust me. Even if it's in nothing. Keeping, you know, I think having a belief in something that you're comfortable with. Having a belief in something that you're comfortable with is important. That's all. That's the only true goal, I think. You know, just having a belief you're comfortable in, regardless of what that is. You're doing well by doing that. Whatever that belief is. If you truly believe it, then that's all that really matters. Yeah, I'm gonna go to bed. Actually, not.